Hello and welcome to Chapter 9 on Nutrition, Exercise, and Weight Management. This is actually one of my favorite chapters to teach, not just in women's health, but in all of my health classes, because I believe that this information is super intricate and applicable to lifelong health for women and men and children alike. The first thing that I would like to talk about is just how vital having a healthy diet and regular exercise are for the U.S. population. If you want to have a fulfilled livelihood, if you want to have energy and be able to do all of the types of things that you can now in your younger years when you are older, then diet and exercise are pretty vital. It's really impossible to live healthy without eating healthy and exercising. And while there are always a few outliers, those few people who have smoked for decades and are still alive, that doesn't hold true for the vast majority of Americans. So we really need to make sure that the exercise and the things we put into our bodies are things that will help us in the long run instead of hinder us, because the body does keep track. One of the things that we have to worry about in the United States, apart from some of the other places in the world, are poor eating habits. There are many fad diets that are out there now. You guys have probably heard of the Atkins, and now there's this whole keto diet that's going on, low carb, and these things just are fad dieting. They're not consistent forms of dieting that will help you throughout your life. They cannot be maintained for long periods of time. So while you may lose weight on them, they're not something that you can keep up on a daily basis for the rest of your life. So it's really important to have good eating habits. We have 400,000 deaths approximately a year, and this is highly preventable. These are things that we can do things every day to prevent this, and it shouldn't be the second greatest preventable cause of death behind tobacco. So these are things that we really should pay better attention to in our younger years, so that way we don't have to work as hard in our older golden years. When it comes to our 6 groups of nutrients, there are carbs, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, and water. And the first 3 are macronutrients. Our bodies need large amounts of those. And the last 3 are micronutrients. And even though our bodies do need these, they're not necessarily used for energy consumption. And we're going to go over all of those in detail as we move on through this presentation. What you're seeing now here is called the Nutrition and Healthy Eating Guide. This used to be called the Food Guide Pyramid, but what happened was the Food Guide Pyramid had the grains portion that you see up in the top right-hand corner. This portion was at the bottom of the Food Guide Pyramid, and the serving sizes were 6 to 11, and while that was accurate, some of the smaller people who were maybe shouldn't have been consuming 11 sizes or 11 servings of grains and carbs, complex carbohydrates. They were consuming too many, and it was just a little misleading to people. It was not helping with the obesity crisis, and so this new plate breaks down things a little bit easier in a graph form, where people can see that half of your diet should be consumed of fruits and vegetables, which are actually carbohydrates. I get so irritated when I hear people say, I don't do carbs. Therefore, you don't eat any grains, you don't eat any starchy foods, you eat no fruits, and you eat no vegetables, because all of those are carbohydrates. It's just fruits and vegetables are simple carbohydrates, and grains and pastas, things of that nature, are complex carbohydrates. We will get into all of those in the next few slides, but carbs also include fruits and vegetables. And then you see you have about 20% of your diet that should be consumed of protein, and that is protein from a variety of sources. It doesn't necessarily have to be from meat sources, and this is why vegetarians can actually be very healthy. And then there is a small dietary section outside, and everybody doesn't consume dairy, but the vast majority of your calories from your macro and micronutrients are going to come from these 4 major groups. Grains and starches. So these are complex carbohydrates. If we consume grains and starches, these are the types of things that will give us energy for the long run. Our complex carbohydrates are like stored energy. Some of us are on medications, and we understand the differences between a quick release and a slow release tablet, where you may have had to take the same medicine 4 or 5 times a day, but then when they came out with a quick release tablet, you only have to take it once or twice a day. This is kind of what a complex carbohydrate is. It's stored fuel for the body. And in this way, you don't have to eat all the time. Individuals who don't consume large amounts of grains and starches or any at all, you might notice that they're always hungry. They're always hungry because they're not getting enough calories in one meal because they're not consuming any carbohydrates. And so they always have to eat something every 3 or 4 hours because they didn't eat enough in the first hour or the first meal where they were consuming their fuel. And so this is important for us to realize because you do need complex carbohydrates in the body. You need them. They are your body's primary source of fuel. So to not eat them is actually not something that is a sustainable type of diet for you to be engaged in for the rest of your life. It's really not that healthy. And I wish people would kind of understand the differences between too much carb consumption and the necessity for your body to run off of carbohydrates. And then we come to fruits and vegetables, which are also carbs. Fruits and vegetables are something that most Americans are not getting enough of in their diet. And one of the good rules of thumb that we have here are that fruits and vegetables should make up half of what you eat. So when you make your plate, half of that plate should be consumed with fruits and vegetables first. And then you can fill up the other half with the carbohydrates, proteins, etc., maybe some dairy. And some of the benefits of this is that complex fruits or complex carbs are higher in calories, but they're good for energy storage and release throughout the day. Where fruits and vegetables are simple carbs, and they don't have a lot of calories in them. They do have a lot of water in them. They have a plethora of vitamins and minerals in them, and they're low calorie. Those are massive benefits. They also have fiber, so that fills up your stomach. Your appetite is satiated faster, so you don't have to eat as much. These are some huge benefits to consuming fruits and vegetables. And if Americans would actually consume more of these, we wouldn't see the obesity and overweight rates that we do in the United States compared to some of the other places in the world. And now we come to protein. This is another area where I want to dispel some common misconceptions. One of the misconceptions is that you need a large degree of protein in your body, and that's simply just not true. The vast majority of the body's energy is going to come from complex and simple carbohydrates. You honestly only need protein for the maintenance and the rebuilding of body tissue. I want to repeat that. Protein is primarily for the maintenance and the building of body tissue, muscle, or maybe you had surgery, so you need to repair, so your protein intake may be higher during this time. But protein is not the body's primary source of calories. As a matter of fact, especially if you're getting it from an animal source, they have much higher rates of cholesterol and fat in a lot of the animal-based proteins and dairy products. So while you are getting protein, you're also getting higher cholesterol. You're also getting higher LDLs. These are some things that we have to kind of vary. So looking for lean products and also not consuming too much meat, because it does take longer for the body to break down in the intestinal system as well. So just think about that when you're looking at your protein intake and making sure you're getting a variety of sources. They don't have very many non-meat products here listed for protein, but one of the best ways that you can get protein as a vegetarian or vegan, or if you just don't want to consume a lot of meat, is to actually consume things like dark green leafy vegetables, legumes, tofu, or tempeh. These are things that have large amounts of protein and are very healthy for us. And then when it comes to dairy products, some people don't consume dairy at all. I know many African Americans, Hispanics, and also American Indians are not that. They're not the best of friends with dairy products, and sometimes it's the amount of consumption that we have too. But these are some areas or some places where you can have dairy and look for low-fat sources such as beef, pork, eggs, low-fat cheese. These are things where you can also get your protein and your dairy kind of combined, but you have to be careful because some of them can be very high in fats. And that is our next macronutrient. So fats are important. We all need fats. We want the good fats, which are HDLs, they're high-density lipoproteins, versus LDLs, low-density lipoproteins. We want unsaturated fats. Unsaturated fats. These are the ones that help decrease our risk for chronic diseases. Or our saturated and trans fats are the ones that increase our risk for diseases, such as those found in Twinkies or Twix bars, or anything that's pretty much a processed, mass-produced food. They're going to have a higher likelihood of having saturated and trans fats. Some things that are low in fat are olives, avocados, These are things that have a high amount of good fat in them. Any of your healthy nuts, they have a high degree of protein and fat in them, and they also help to decrease the risk of in many of our lifestyle related diseases. Water is another nutrient that we need so much of, and most people don't get enough of. Many headaches are caused by a lack of water in the body. So your body is 50 to 70% water. That means you're constantly losing water through respiration, through exercise, through a variety of different types of things. And so you want to replace that water. A loss of even 2 to 5% of your body's water. It's not statistically that much, but it can lead to dehydration, heat stroke, and malaise, fatigue. All of these things can happen when you don't put enough water in your body. So it's very, very important to be able to consume enough water so that we can be healthy. And then I want to talk about some nutrition facts. The daily caloric servings usually say something around the 2,000 calorie mark, but most women don't need 2,000 calories. As a matter of fact, for me to maintain my weight, I only need about 1,500 to 1,600 calories a day with pretty much no exercise. With moderate exercise, about 1,800. So we don't need as much as men. Women, we have to really become label readers when it comes to putting calories into our bodies, because one thing that I've noticed about women and men is that we vastly underestimate the number of calories that we put into our bodies. So when we look at nutrition labels such as this, look at the calorie intake, but also look at the serving sizes. That is something that often does not get looked at. And as women, once again, we have more essential body fat, and we also don't have as much testosterone, as much body muscle, and so we don't burn off calories as quickly as men do. We have to become label readers. We have to know how much fat, how much cholesterol, how much sodium, how many calories per serving are in our foods. We don't have the luxury sometimes of just being able to throw food in our mouths and hope for the best. Now let's talk about some benefits to exercise and fitness. Of course, we can lower our risk for a litany of different diseases, especially with breast, lung, and colon cancer, type 2 diabetes, which is insulin resistant. That is almost primarily based on diet and exercise, and mostly diet. You can severely decrease your risk by just eating healthy and exercising. Our blood pressure is lowered, our cholesterol is lowered, healthy endorphins are put off in the body when we exercise. It improves our heart and our lungs and our aerobic capacity, our muscle strength, our endurance. Our bodies just look better. We can put on muscle wherever we want. We lose fat from everywhere, so we can't choose, I want to lose it from here, here, here. You lose it all over comprehensively, but you can put on muscle wherever you want, and that's great because sometimes we just want to build up certain areas of the body. So these are things that are really important. The next aspect comes into how much exercise do you actually really need? And the answer is about 150 minutes a week. And that is just a moderate to high intensity exercise. That's about 2.5 hours. If you're doing something that's very high intensity, then you don't need to work out as longer because you're burning more calories with the when the intensity level increases. So about 150 minutes. But if you can get 300 minutes, which is twice that, on most days of the week, which is 4 days of the week, then you will notice that your physical level, your physical fitness levels, your energy levels will be so much higher. So there's a temporary decline in energy after the workout, but then it is supplemented by our body is just healing. And after that, we do notice increases in energy because our aerobic capacity is just that much greater. When we look at our components of physical fitness, your heart and your lungs for cardiovascular endurance, your muscles and how powerful they are for muscular strength, how long your muscles can do the same activity, how flexible you are so that you're not injuring yourself, your body composition, all of these things are important for physical fitness, and they come from exercising. Exercising is easier when we diet, though. And if we can really diet in a way that gives us energy but doesn't make us gain weight, then we're just kind of killing two birds with one stone. And that is very helpful for women. I want to talk about some gender gaps for a second, and I'm going to do that on part 2 because I'm running out of time here. But when we come back, we'll look at gender gaps for men and women and why exercising can seem so much more difficult for women than it can seem for men. All right, thank you very kindly.